So can you see the screen?
I can, so hopefully somebody else can.
Perfect. So good morning, everyone. Very nice to see so many here. Thank you very much to Alistair and the whole team of Most Valued Business, of course, for hosting this event today. And also a big thank you to Hollet International and Eco Laundry Hijau Indonesia for supporting this event. I'm very happy actually to be amongst the speakers today and to actually kickstart with the first presentation. Since I'm the only consultant amongst the speakers, I'm taking the opportunity to give a little bit more general overview, whereas I imagine that most other speakers will very specifically dive into their field of expertise. And yeah, since I have only very little time, I'm just jumping right into the presentation. And just to take 1 minute with one slide to actually introduce myself and the company that I'm coming from and presenting to you today is Closed Loop Fashion. Some of you might already know us, some not. We are a sustainable consulting service specialized in the field of apparel and textile production. And we operate in 4 different segments, which are very closely interlinked. So the first one is sustainable business strategizing. The second one is sustainable supply chain management, which is mainly targeted towards manufacturers. This is where we support manufacturers to implement social and environmental compliance in preparation of getting specific certifications that are requested from their customers. The next step is where we focus a little bit more on circular economy practices. Here, our main focus is on textile waste management system integration. I need to point out that we don't handle textile waste, so we're a consultancy. What we are doing is to help manufacturers to integrate textile waste management systems in terms of collecting, segregation, further usage possibilities, tracking, monitoring, labeling, storing, and so on, so that the waste actually can achieve a higher value for reselling purposes and reuse purposes. We also work with factories in terms of developing yarns and fabrics from recycled content. One of our very successful latest projects has been the development of a recycled polyester fiber from textile waste, which you might already have heard of. It's Heco Prima, which will be launching into the market very soon. And the last package, which is also very, very important, is to train brands and manufacturers in terms of how to design products and in a very different way. So how to approach them from the very beginning, that they are actually made for circularity and can be reutilized at the end of use. And to keep this like after use phase in mind while designing an actual product. So these are kind of the fields we are operating in. I'm not going much further. If you are interested into these kind of topics, I have linked you a website down here where you can find a few project examples and also much more details about these kind of services that we are operating in. So I need to shift this here. Perfect. So just to give you a little idea where we are right now in the industry, I know everyone has seen this kind of graph. It's been used all over the web already for quite some time. Nevertheless, I've been choosing it because I think it indicates in a very simplified way of the topic that we are addressing today. Of course, where we are is a linear economy, and where we want to go to is a circular economy. And that is a long way with a lot of hurdles that we have not overcome yet. And we are only in the very, very first phase, in the beginning of actually figuring out what works and what not. We are lacking a lot of things that we're going to cover in the next few slides to actually achieve a fully circular economy in the textile industry. So where we are at this very moment is somewhere between a linear economy on the way to a recycling economy. And when we talk about recycling economy, it means we're extending the life cycle of textile materials, maybe for 1, 2, 3 more cycles, but it is not an infinite cycle as we are trying to target with an actual circular economy strategy. And the biggest challenge that we are facing here right now is how to bring these materials back into the loop to actually close loop material cycles to actually be able to reuse these materials. And of course, the other challenge is that right now products are not designed for circularity. So the way they are actually made, which often means from a lot of different fiber blends and components, they are actually not designed to be recycled and totally not for an actual circular process. We have two different waste types. I know you're all aware of this. I just want to dive a little bit more into where are we now in terms of post and pre-consumer waste and what are actually the main challenges that we are facing right now and that are hindering us from actually going beyond this linear and recycling economy where we are right now. One of them, of course, the post-consumer waste has been the most central in the discussion globally for circular economy concepts. Basically, this is because circular economy is driven from more Western or developed countries. And these are actually also the countries where usually brands are based. And the reusage of post-consumer waste has actually presented a kind of business opportunity for brands in terms of reselling these waste materials and generating new business streams. Whereas, of course, if we would look into pre-consumer waste that is happening somewhere in the factory, somewhere in manufacturing countries, this does not give brands a direct benefit. This is why also this kind of material has been addressed primary in these first few years and in this first few phases of actually targeting circular economy. But it also is because this is a waste type that is far more easily accessible in countries, in Western or developing countries. In terms of that this is a market that often is already established. It already has an infrastructure which is often dominated by charity organizations that are currently collecting these kind of materials and then further trading it. Often this is sent overseas into secondary markets, secondhand markets, or it is going into the recycling or downcycling industry, often ending up as non-woven materials, as filling materials, and so on. Unfortunately, also a certain percentage is burned, incinerated, or illegally or legally dumped, depending on the location we're talking about. Unfortunately, a lot of countries, especially in Africa and Asia, don't have any infrastructure yet for collecting post-consumer garments, post-consumer waste. So here we are completely using this kind of valuable raw material right now. We also face a very, very big challenge here, which is a sort of downward spiral in terms of quality. The charity organization or collectors right now are highly depending on high quality because the main business they are doing with the primary category when segregating used garments, which is actually the category that they are able to sell as vintage or second hand. But the quality of products that are entering the markets currently is just so low that a lot of these products have to go directly in second, third, or fourth category, which means it's generating much less business opportunities. So this is kind of a segment that currently is struggling a lot, and it definitely needs to be readjusted and restructured to actually make sense and also to bring these materials into a higher value loop again. When we look into pre-consumer waste, it is actually estimated, or not only estimated, it has been properly calculated that up to 47% of the fiber input that is going into a product is actually lost as waste during the whole process of fiber, yarn, fabric, and garment making. So this is a massive amount. It means we are nearly losing 50% of the raw material feedstock throughout the process. And this is kind of a very unacceptable stage where we are right now. You can see in the picture, this is from the cutting table. And just alone in the cut, make, trim process where we're cutting the garments on these tables, we have easily up to 20–25% of waste. And this waste is, as you can see, also very challenging as it is like a lot of small sized waste, which is often also mixed with paper and plastic from the cutting process. And it's just sorted, it's unsorted going into bags and into storage. So we often don't have a segregation process right at where this point of generation is happening for waste materials. Waste has, this kind of pre-consumer waste has, just like post-consumer waste, different kind of values depending on at which stage it's occurring. If we talk about spinning waste, this kind of waste has pretty much the same value as raw material feedstock because it's kind of unprocessed. It's also not actually declared as waste materials in certifications. If we talk about dead stock, this is also a material that is pretty much as new right now. It has a lower value market. I'm not really sure why this is, because actually it is as new and it could also be treated and sold as a new product. But if we look at different waste types in between, such as salvage waste or cutting waste and so on, of course, this has a much lower value because it needs additional treatment to be further processed. And currently it is estimated that about 25% of all this waste that is occurring during the manufacturing process is actually waste that needs further treatments to be reused. And then, of course, we also have waste that is declared as hazardous waste, for example, from wet processing, from chemical input processes. And this kind of waste needs to be properly disposed of, as it is defined as hazardous. And yeah, in a lot of producing countries, of course, what we are facing is that there is no proper textile waste management infrastructure. So often these kind of materials are illegally burned or illegally dumped somewhere. Another challenge that we are facing is that a lot of international brands are by contract forcing their factories to actually burn or dump, mostly burn the materials and not to trade them in local markets due to property rights in terms of, of the colors or the prints that maybe the fabric has that could be linked to this kind of brand. So also another challenge that we are facing is ownership. Usually the brand is not the owner of the materials throughout the whole process, but actually every stakeholder along the supply chain is owner. That means who is actually responsible for waste, because there is no one stakeholder responsible for the whole thing, but a lot of different stakeholders separately for every step. So also this makes it more difficult to actually find solutions here of who is taking the responsibility. I just have to check, is someone actually checking the time and giving me indications, because I can't see anything on my display despite the presentation. I don't know how much more time I have. So where is actually all the waste ending up? This is a very good question, because right now we have a massive gap between waste and what the industry could actually do to create a recycling or circular economy. About 12% of all waste materials are going into a downcycling process, into non-woven materials, filling materials for automotive, insulation, construction, and so on, whereas about 73% of all garments are actually ending up on landfill. And this is a lot of valuable resource that we are currently losing. And why is that? Is specifically because we're facing a massive gap between having these waste materials generated on some point somewhere and having recycling technologies somewhere else. So there is a gap of how to bring these raw materials to the place where they could actually recycle it. And also, of course, there is a lack of recycling technology right now in terms of facing this challenge with all the different material types and fiber blends we're having. So
Marina, you have 4 more minutes.
Okay, good. So what we are facing is a lack of technology right now. So this is where we would need to invest to further improve recycling, especially to also recycle fiber blends, which are the most common used materials or compositions right now in the industry. We have a lack of transparency and traceability. So actually to find out what kind of waste type we have, needs proper labeling, or it needs some kind of DNA analysis and needs new technology to actually identify this easily. We have missing textile waste management structures in most countries, which means this waste type or material type is actually not collected and sorted and further available for actually being recycled. And what we are missing is also relogistics, transportations, import, export regulations, trading possibilities between countries to get the materials from one place to another. Especially the used garments have given like a lot of new business opportunities to brands, and this is why this has been the fastest growing segment in terms of circularity. I'm not really keen to use this term here because it's not exactly circularity, it's more an extension of life cycles. But we have to stay also very critical with if circular economy actually is the solution for everything that we talk about, especially when we look into subscription rentals, which is a resale, which are one of the fastest growing market segments right now in the textile industry. It actually has been calculated that the ecological footprint of products that are rented out multiple times through subscription rentals are actually more damaging to the environment than if you would have bought a product new one time. This is especially due to the cleaning process, which is a dry cleaning on all the transportation and packaging that is involved in the process. So, for example, if we look into recycled polyester is an absolutely fantastic opportunity to recycle waste and to reuse it, but still this is a material that would shed microfibers into waterways and our oceans. So we always have to also look into these kind of possibilities and see what actually makes sense and if this is actually already the final and best solution. And in terms of actually finding solutions, what we need to do is to create new infrastructures in our industry. What we need is reversible supply chains. We need to set up textile waste management systems. We need to set up standardizations in the industry for waste sorting. We have to generate collecting points, sorting points, recycling industry, and also, of course, we have to design in a very different way in the future so that design is actually suitable for being reused in the process. We definitely need new technology and innovations when it comes to, for example, identifying waste materials. Garments not always have a label, and also if you are a sorter, you wouldn't have time to actually check into garments if there is an actual label to display the material composition. So we need solutions, solutions that very, very fast identify the material compositions. You can here, for example, see this kind of fingerprint. This is kind of a DNA solution. It's a ceramic-based ink that is applied on the yarn and through a specific scanner can easily identify the material composition. But of course, also we need to improve recycling technology so we can in the future maybe address more recycling also for products that are made from fiber blends and a lot of different components. And most importantly of all, we have to change how we design. We need to design products from the very beginning for circularity, which means the product either needs to be created for the biocycle, it has to be fully biodegradable in the end of life, or it has to be created for the tech cycle, meaning it is a product that can fully be recycled in a process without losing any of its value and can be reused afterwards. I also added here extended loop because this is where we are right now. Extended loop would look more into upcycling and redesigning. Of course, we need to address the situation where we are right now, where not all products are made for bio and tech cycle, and to find a lot of solutions of redesigning and upcycling also the products that we already have in the market. And this requires smart design, and smart design means just to think design in a different way. I love this example from Petit Blé. It's a UK brand. What they have been creating is like garments for kids that actually grow with your kids over multiple months. And they have been really holistically thinking about how to create this product. So it is made from 100% recycled polyester. There is no other material or trim within this product, and it's pleated, and you can over time open these pleats so that actually the product is growing with your child. So this for me is smart design that can also be fully recycled and recovered in our system. We can look into zero waste patterns. We definitely have to work with monomaterials. Otherwise, how do we separate them? And if we don't work with monomaterials, we have to make sure that this is designed for disassembly, that there is a possibility to disassemble the different material components so they could be separately reused in different reutilization streams. We should address also multifunctionality, transformable design for garments, design for longevity to really go back to high quality, long lasting products. And of course, right now to address all the materials surplus that we already have to really find scalable solutions for upcycling and redesigning products. And to be able to do smart design, and we're going to have a few speakers, of course, today to introduce their solutions for materials for circularity, we definitely have to address materials in a different way. Materials should not harm our planet and they should not harm people, and they should also be able to be recovered in our system. So materials need to be biodegradable, they need to be regenerative, and also they need to support regenerative farming and agriculture. They should be renewable, recyclable. Maybe they could be lab grown. We see more and more examples of this coming up. They should be from waste materials, either from our own industry or from other industries. And of course, they should be carbon neutral, because addressing the topic of climate change is one of the most pressing needs that we currently face in our industry.
I'm afraid you have to wrap up.
Yes, this is my last slide. Perfect.
Perfect.
And yeah, just to sum this up with one slide is, of course, what we need is a much more holistic approach than what we currently have in our industry. We need to design products for circularity. We have to use materials for circularity. We have to address manufacturing for circularity, which is also covering wastewater treatment, green chemistry input, renewable energy sources, and so on. So this needs to be addressed as well. We have to find solutions for after use, and implement digital solutions and traceability tools. And last but not least, of course, we have to globally establish reversible supply chains to be able to bring all these materials back into our system. So I hope I made it on time, Alistair. I'm handing over.
Thank you very much indeed, Marina. Gosh, food for thought. I mean, I have 8 questions myself for you, which we'll come back to later, but you've raised a great many different points, which I hope